This is Off the Cuff. I'm Tom Sumner, your host, Monday through Friday from 6 to 9. Dick Wagner's songs and lead guitar have been featured on more than 200 renowned albums. He is literally a legend, especially in Michigan, and he's back in Michigan, and I have a chance to talk to him. Dick, thanks so much for spending time with us this morning.
I'm very happy to be here talking to you.
I have to admit I'm a bit of a fan, and I go back to the Sherwood Forest days and Dick Wagner and the Frost and regional hits and Michigan music and all that. You started with a group called the Bossmen, and I was hoping that maybe so we could put things in context a little bit, if you could connect some dots between the Bossmen and the Frost and Alice Cooper and up to what you're doing now. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about songwriting.
Okay, sure. Well, the Bossmen was middle 1960s, heavily influenced by the Beatles, who I discovered listening and driving down the highway and coming over the radio was "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and that changed my life. And because it was like, I hadn't heard anything like that, and then I just loved it. So I got really into the Beatles. I was part of Beatlemania, I suppose. But I was also playing the band, and I had moved to Saginaw and gotten together with Lanny Renicky and with Pete Woodman and my friend Warren Keys, who had previously been playing with me in a band in Detroit called the Eldorados, and now he was in Saginaw with the Bossmen, who were at that time named the Playboys. So they wanted me to play guitar with them. So I moved my family, my young family. I had just been married and had a little boy, who is now touring with me here in Michigan.
Nice.
All these years later, but so I go up to Saginaw and I'm playing guitar with the Playboys, and immediately insisted on changing the name. So we changed the name of the band to the Bossmen. I mean, I don't know how much better that is, but it seemed like a good thing to do at the time. And so now it was Lanny and Pete and Warren and me on guitar, and we started drawing huge crowds. We were playing at a place called the Village Pump 7 nights a week. We played every day, and it was packed every single day. Forever, for like 2 years.
Those were the days.
Yeah, those were the days, I know. So that was just a perfect experience for me. And then we played together for about, I guess, 3 going on 4 years. And it got to the point where I wanted to do a little bit more complex music. I was starting to write songs that were a little more advanced than the Bossmen, and I knew that the Bossmen sound was not going to, really carry these songs the way I needed to have it done. So the band split up, and I went up and met with another group in Michigan called the Chevelles, and Bobby Reagan and the Chevelles. Bobby Reagan was already kind of a legendary drummer in Michigan. So now I was with the Chevelles, and we ended up calling that band the Frost, and ended up infiltrating, shall we say, Detroit, Flint, all the places south of Saginaw, and everything above it. I mean, the entire state, really. The Frost became a hugely popular band. Now, this was the beginning of the era of Bob Seger, Ted Nugent, Mitch Ryder, Stooges, a lot of different groups like this.
Yeah, they were all Michigan bands.
Yeah, they were all bands. They're all in the local scene, and playing for concerts that were being thrown by different radio stations. From Saginaw to Flint.
Well, Peter C. Cavanaugh here in Flint.
Rapids, everywhere in the state. extremely famous. We were like the number one act. Seeger and Nugent we were more popular than they were at that time. So then the Frost had been playing together about 3 years. A friend of mine, he became a friend of mine. He wasn't at this point. Dennis Arfa, who is a booking agent, came into Detroit and wanted to manage us. So he became our manager, and he talked me into going out to New York and leaving the Frost and forming the new band out there with Billy Joel. And so I went out to New York, and Billy Joel and I, and this drummer, this phenomenal drummer from New York City, Rick Mangone, we got together and formed this band called Ursa Major. We were together long because Billy Joel had some problems. He ended up having to leave the group before we really ever got really started. And he moved out to the West Coast. Out there he became the legendary Billy Joel.
Right.
Meanwhile, I had to call back. I was in New York. I had to call back here and ask Greg Arama from the Amboy Dukes to join up with me out on the East Coast and form this band, Ursa Major. So it became a power trio, kind of like Grand Funk,
mm-hmm.
but a little more sophisticated. Grand Funk was wonderful and powerful, and Ursa Major was too, but we had a little more sophisticated songs. And so that was the next part of the evolution of my career. After Ursa Major, we only did one album. We didn't get along, in the end, so it split up. Putting together a band that will actually stay together and rehearse, and they all have the same purpose and the same goals, is so difficult. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've been able to put together bands that at least had a 3 or 4 year lifespan. In other words, time to get something accomplished. I've been very fortunate to have been able to do that. Ursa Major was together a couple of years. We toured with Alice Cooper. We toured with Jeff Beck. We did our own touring. So there was a little bit of success there, but it never really had a chance to take off the way it should have. And so there I was, standing by myself, living in Connecticut with my wife, and wondering what I was going to do next. But I got a call from Lou Reed to audition for him, and I did, and ended up being part of the rock and roll animal band for Lou Reed.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, when Alice Cooper and Shep Gordon, who is his manager, called me because they loved my songwriting and they wanted me to get involved with Alice, because Alice was going to go solo and leave his band. They wanted me to come in and help them put together a new band, so I took the Lou Reed band and brought it over to Alice Cooper. So now we got the same, I've got the same players around me. This great band that was playing for Lou Reed was now playing for Alice Cooper. And then we did Welcome to My Nightmare and all the stuff that we did with Alice all those years. I was with her for about 10 years. And, so that's about it. Then I've been doing a solo kind of thing ever since.
Right.
For the last 5 years. The last 5 years I haven't played at all. I had to quit because I had a heart attack and a stroke.
And I had heard that you had been sick, and I know
very ill. Yes.
An awful lot of people are thrilled that you're back up and that you're playing again, and that you've not only survived.
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, people actually care. I didn't know this. I mean, I had a heart attack and a stroke. My arm was paralyzed. I couldn't play anymore. I thought my life was over. But, I really got into practicing and getting my guitar playing back. I got my arm to function again.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 100%, but I'd give it at least a 92. About 92%, something like that. So I'm back out playing again. This is something that I really dreamed about doing, but never thought I'd be able to because of the paralysis. And but I've conquered it, and so I'm back up playing, and we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, from here, I don't really know.
Do you think of yourself as a guitar player or a songwriter?
Well, you know, I love everything that I do, from playing the guitar to playing the keyboards, writing songs, producing records. To me, it's all just one big picture, you know, and it has little parts, little pieces of it that I try to function within whenever I can. So doing this is like an experiment for me. This is a chance to go back out and see if people actually want to see me play. A chance for me to go out and see if they still want to hear my music. A chance to see whether or not I can actually do it. And I did my first gig last night. We did a warm-up gig, non-publicized, just word of mouth, in a little town called Dryden.
How did it feel to you?
It was fantastic. The place was packed. I mean, they loved it. I mean, it was amazing. You know, and it felt great to me to play, and I've got such a great band. We put on a really good show. It was, like I said, it was really crowded and not even publicized. So how they all got the message that I was going to be there, I don't know, but they did.
I was reading some biographical information about some of your work and some of your production work, and you've been credited with either playing guitar or having some sort of songwriting connection to music that has garnered 35 platinum and gold records, BMI Songwriter Awards, Emmys, and numerous other prestigious awards. In the songwriting part of it, Dick, how do you approach writing a song? There's a funny line from the comedian musician Martin Mull, who says people ask me, you know, which comes first, the music or the lyrics, and I say yes. Do they come together at the same time when you're writing a song?
Sometimes they do. I mean, when I first started writing, I tried to write everything at once. And now what I try to do is either with my keyboard or my guitar, try to set a mood that will invoke a feeling, that will invoke a title, which I can work from and try to create lyrics. Or I will sit down and just freeform write things until I come up with a title that suddenly impresses me, and I can say to myself, there, that's a song. And I can then take that title and start to work on lyrics, or start to work on lyrics and melody at the same time. So it can go any way in particular, but generally I have an idea, a focus point, and start to work from that.
Now, I mentioned when we first started talking that I've seen you play many times with the Frost back at Sherwood Forest and back in the day. And I've been familiar with your work from that band. I knew about the Bossmen, and I did know about the time you spent with Alice Cooper, but I was really surprised at some of the other credits in your bio and some of the other people that you've worked with, and I think that's because some of it has been sort of behind the scenes. And I'm just going to run down a few names and then talk about the role that you've played with some people. Like, for example, Aerosmith, Kiss, you mentioned Lou Reed earlier, Peter Gabriel, Meatloaf, Guns N' Roses, Ringo Starr, Tina Turner, Etta James, Air Supply. I don't think of Dick Wagner when I hear those names. Where were you in the mix on these connections with people?
In general, I was either playing guitar on a recording session for them, or I was doing some arranging for them, or I was writing songs for them. You know, always supplying some sort of musical expression to back them up, to try to make them sound better and make them sound great. I mean, that's my role, is to make other people sound great. But I love to do my own thing, too, you know, so, and I have kind of given up the actual act of trying to be a solo artist, you know, in order to help another artist do something great. So I've always been a sideman, but at the same time, in my heart, I'm an artist too.
Well, I was going to ask, with all the things that you've done, you know, behind the scenes and you know, as a producer, as a musician, as a songwriter, as a collaborator, do you like studio work or live performance better? Do you have a preference?
I love both of them, honestly. I came up with being, you know, the leader of bands like the Bossmen and the Frost. Even in Alice Cooper, I became like the band leader, and I was the music director.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always loved playing live, going out, you know, in front of audiences and getting that immediate feedback on what you're doing. You know, that's what's so great about playing live. It's like it's right there immediately. They either like you or they don't. And fortunately, in my life, they've liked me pretty much. So playing live is fantastic. It's also, you know, very tiring. Whereas having to tour, when you're touring, it's not an easy experience. I mean, people think that, hey, is show business fun? And in a sense, it is, but it's also very stressful. And just the act of moving from city to city, airplanes and hotels, and it is very exhausting, really.
You know,
I've been back to Michigan now for a little over a week. I'm tired already.
It was interesting.
I've been a lot of work since I've been here. I've been, you know, on the phone doing interviews and, you know, meeting with people and doing recording sessions and rehearsing, getting ready to play live, and then last night playing live. So it's tiring, but, you know, it's very rewarding to me because it's what I chose as a lifestyle, and here I am doing it again. The studio is also tiring because there's so many hours involved, and sometimes it's very tedious work. You know, you have to repeat things over and over and over, and you have to listen to things over and over and over. So it can be very, very tiring, but it's so rewarding when you hear one of your songs come back at you, you know, as though it's on the radio, and you just get that feeling of the first time you heard one of your songs on the radio, which is, you know, a fabulous experience. You do all this work and write this song, and you really like it, and then some people seem to like it, and then you record it, and more people like it, and then someday you hear it on the radio, and, I mean, that is the ultimate exhilaration. It's like, wow, there it is. You know, I'm in there. I'm with everybody else who's making records, and it's a feeling of pride and achievement. So I would say that it's hard to toss up, to be honest with you. I don't know. I think that probably now at my age, I'm getting a little older, the studio would be my absolute preference because there's a more immediate control, and you don't have to go through all of that travel.
Right, right.
So, but I do like to, that's why I'm doing this. I'm traveling right now, and it's tiring, but, you know, but I love it. When you feel that audience, there's nothing quite like it. So, to answer your question after 10 minutes, it's a toss-up. I don't know. I love them both.
Well,
I love them both.
Well, I want to talk about some of the stuff that you've been doing, that you're going to be doing, and that you have coming up in just a moment. But I need to take a short break. If you can stick around for a few minutes.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
All right. We'll be right back with more Off the Cuff right after this. And I'm back. This is Off the Cuff. I'm Tom Sumner, your host, Monday through Friday from 6 to 9. Joining me by phone, legendary lead guitar player, hit songwriter with credits that include Alice Cooper and the Bossmen and his own band, Dick Wagner and the Frost. A Michigan favorite son, you would have to say, musically, and he's joining me by phone. Dick, thanks for being here, and thanks for sticking around.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. Nice talking to you.
Just before the break, we were talking a little bit about, you know, studio versus live, and songwriting a little bit. We touched on, and I wanted to get into that a little bit more. You mentioned during the last segment, in fact, right at the beginning of our conversation, about being influenced by the Beatles, and you can really hear that in your Bossmen music. Some of the harmonies, some of the chord changes, and some of the stuff that you do. And then Alice Cooper is very, very different. Just well, is it that?
I got out of Beatlemania. I still love John Lennon and Paul McCartney. I mean, who would? But they're no longer that immediate direct influence on me that they were when I was young.
Right, but I guess the question is, can you just get in your head a different style and write in that style? Or is it an evolution?
In general, yeah, I can. I mean, in general, if I want to write a song that, let's say, is a country song, I know how to do that. I do write country songs. I write jazz. I write a little bit of everything, but I'm mostly known for my pop and rock and roll songs. But I do have a whole wealth, a whole library of other kinds of music that I've written. Because I really enjoy and love all kinds of music when it's good. There are certain musical pieces and so on that I don't really like, but for myself, I enjoy it all. So I tend to find moments when I will write a country song. I don't really mean to. I sit down and I start to write, because my rule is, to be a writer, you have to actually write, and you have to write a couple hours every day. You got to ply your trade. So, I try to write, and I write almost every day still, even at my age, because I get up at 5 in the morning, and then I go immediately to my studio and with a cup of coffee, and I start to work, and I write, and I come up with songs, and then I demo them in my studio. By the end of the day, I've got a new song, and maybe it goes to a publisher, or maybe it just sits on my shelf. Maybe I decide I'm going to try to perform it live. I'm writing for a couple of movies. Different things are happening, with songwriting. So I'm always busy doing that. And the difference between writing, say, for the Bossmen or for Alice Cooper, it's just a matter of degrees. I mean, it's all basically from the same point of view, but it's more complex. You've got a lot more things to consider with it, like an Alice Cooper, because you have to write to an image of the character and the history of that character, and you've got to try to find something that will make sense within that. So, not being Alice Cooper myself, I have to become Alice Cooper in my mind to really, make it happen in that vein. Alice Cooper's image.
That's
that's basically the story about my songwriting. It's a natural progression. You can hear it from the Bossmen to the Frost. You can hear the difference, big time difference.
Oh yeah.
Where I was going with music. I mean, it was just becoming much more developed and much more sophisticated, with the Frost. And then Ursa Major, if you listen to that album, you're going to hear another whole evolution into different styles of songs.
Well, I remember you mentioning. I remember you talking about in the last segment playing with Billy Joel, and one of the things that I've always admired about Billy Joel is he seemed to be able to write to any genre.
Right.
He could do something doo-wop, and then later do something that's sort of new wave or punkish, and great pop songs that we all know. And you've had some big hits. When you're writing a song, whether it's for Alice Cooper or if you're collaborating with Aerosmith or I don't know, whoever else, do you know it's going to be a hit when you finish writing a song?
To be honest with you, so far I've been absolutely right. Every time that I've written a song that I thought would be a hit, it has been. So that means that most of my songs aren't hits, because you can't have all hits. You can only once in a while come up with one that really appeals to the masses of people all over the world. But you know that when you finish the song, you just know that this song has the potential to be a hit. And then if you have the right kind of organization behind you, people who can get the song out there, get it to radio, get it either recorded by another artist or whatever, it'll be a hit. I mean, there's so many factors involved in actually having a hit, which is a little bit different than writing a hit. I mean, you can write one and you know it's going to be a hit if it never gets the right treatment. So, I mean, with an Cooper or Lou Reed or whatever, you know that you have people behind you that are going to make this happen. So, yeah. I mean, when I finish writing a song in collaboration with or by myself, I know when it's going to be a hit. And, you know, the meaning of a hit can be different, too. It isn't just like the top 40, number one in the top 40. A hit is whatever appeals to a great populace of people. So I have many songs that are hits in that there haven't been radio hits, but they're hits when I play live. They're hits when other people do them. Mm-hmm. So defining a hit and writing a hit, it's kind of I mean, yeah, you know, but how do you get there? I mean, you can't sit down and write a hit every time you write a song. But you can write songs that approach that. And you can continuously become a better and better writer so that you never write a bad song. They're all good songs because you know how to do it. You know, you have to know the craft, how to actually write. And you can only get that by spending hours every day doing it, just writing, until you begin to improve. And then eventually you get your hits. And I've been fortunate. I've had a few, so. And I feel like,
has the new technology and all of these young artists that are doing, you know, indie releases and releasing their own music and putting things out on the internet and that sort of thing, has it made it harder for a song to become a hit?
I think so. I think it has. I mean, right now there are so many people who are like in their basement with their own little, means of getting songs out on the internet and, on iTunes, CD Baby, all of these means of distributing songs, which are really kind of virtual. It's all in cyberspace. But there are so many people out there creating their own music now. And, I mean, it's hurting the big-time studios because kids are doing these records in their basement. So it's harder to get a hit because there's just so much. I mean, there's so much music out there. And not everyone gets a hit. So
sure.
Yeah, and it's very hard to have the organization to put it together. Like I said earlier about putting together a band and keeping it together is so difficult. Just as difficult trying to find an organization who can really, get your music out there. So it's very complex. So it is harder to have a hit. And once again, the question of what is a hit? How big does it have to be before you consider it to be a hit? I mean, it's pretty complex formula.
Right. And speaking of technology, because your success with performance and songwriting and production has spanned several decades and a lot of technological advancement, does new technology change the way you write?
I suppose you could say that it does, because now I have immediately right in front of me my studio. I mean, I don't have to go over to a recording studio.
Right.
I don't have to fly to New York and go to a recording studio. I've got it right there in my house. I mean, so I can create, at least the facsimile of what a hit is, or what I would do in a big studio. I can do it right in my house. I can hear all the elements right in front of me the first day that I'm working. So yeah, in that sense, it makes it easier for me.
How it
influences the actual content of a song. And I won't say that it does that, because the only way maybe it does is that you get to put your ideas down instantly, right, immediately. Whereas in the past, we used to have to write songs and memorize them as we write them, so that we didn't forget them. You know, you'd have to write the words down on a piece of paper, and then write down the chord changes and try to memorize the melody as you go. And, you know, remembering songs is a task in itself. So by the time you finish a song, you're hoping that it's still the same melody that you started with. You know, it could change itself as you go along. One note makes a big difference. So when you're young and writing and you're doing it on a piece of paper and a pencil, it's different than putting it into Pro Tools. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I know there was a bit of a brouhaha over for some people over the remastering of the Beatles anthology, and trying to take out some of the studio noise and some of the hiss and that sort of thing, and there was this feeling that it changed the music somehow.
Well, it would. You know, the less noisy you make a piece, the better it sounds. When you take out all the external stuff in a recording, like on a vocal track, for instance, if you're singing and you do a vocal track, you're also, you know, breathing and you're making little noises, mouth is making noises. That all gets picked up, and it's all on that record. And even though you don't apparently hear it, it's all part of the background noise. So when you start having 24, 48 tracks of music, and there are little incidental pieces of sound like that, it builds into a lot of noise, a lot of sound. And you need to remove all that stuff to have a really clean and beautiful record. So
I'm so happy to be spending time with you. It's a real honor. But I want to talk a little bit about, you're going to be playing tonight in Ferndale.
Yes, I'm at the Magic Bag in Ferndale, 9 Mile and Woodward Avenue.
And what time does the show start, Dick?
This is my first gig in 5 years. The show starts at 8 o'clock.
And
the doors open at 7, I think. But
yeah, and it's Dick Wagner
and there's a band opening for us called the Trues. They're from Canada, and I haven't heard them yet, but I understand they're really sensational.
And you're calling it Dick Wagner and Friends. Who are the friends, Dick?
I'm really calling it's the Dick Wagner Show.
Oh, okay. I saw something a write-up somewhere that said Dick Wagner and Friends will be appearing, and
it's definitely Friends. You know, this is kind of a friends and family show.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Prakash John, the bass player who played with me in Rock and Roll Animal and in Welcome to My Nightmare from Toronto. He's playing bass for me. I've got his son, Jordan John, who's a phenomenal, like a prodigy kind of guy, playing drums. He's also a fantastic guitar player and a keyboard player. So this kid is 25 years old and he's like amazing. So he's part of the group. Then I've got my son, Robert Wagner, coming in from Austin, Texas. He's singing with me. And he's with a group in Austin called Suede. They're very popular down there, and they tour, the tour of the country opening for George Lopez, the comedian.
Oh, yeah.
On his world tours. So he's out there doing it, and he's taking time off from his career to come down and spend a couple weeks with his dad and do these shows. And he is just phenomenal. He's my son. I want to brag on him, but at the same time, I got to tell the truth. He's phenomenal. So I've got these two little family things going, which is kind of nice.
That is nice.
And then I've got Ray Goodman from SRC and Mitch Ryder on guitar. And I've got Dennis Burr on guitar. He's the guitar player who backs up this group called Detroit Women. I don't know if you've heard them or not, but they're phenomenal. They're like 8 women who stand in the line and sing. They're all great singers. It's really phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
He's their guitar player. He's an incredible guitar player.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Two of the best guitar players and a drummer who is as good as they are, you know, and me playing guitar right in the middle of them. It's very interesting. It's like a guitar army. But I mean, they're all sensational players. And I've got, from the band that I used to have up in Saginaw, I used to call it the Soul's Journey Band. I've got Brian Bennett and Alan Bondar, my two keyboard players.
Oh, Al Bonder.
Al Bondar, yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a great guy, and he's a great keyboard player. So I've got this incredible band of you know, Michigan musicians. Well, actually, Prakash and Jordan are from Toronto, but let's call them Michigan musicians.
All right. They're going to be Michigan musicians tonight.
All-star band, and, you know, they're backing me up. So, you know, I'm very proud and I'm very fortunate that these guys took all the time out of their careers to spend this month with me.
Now, are you going to do old stuff or mostly new stuff?
I'm doing more or less a retrospective of everything from the Bossmen to my solo career. So it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of Lou Reed, you know, some Alice Cooper, Ursa Major, the Frost, the Bossmen, my solo stuff. It's going to be a combination of all of it.
Well, Dick, thanks so much for taking time out of what is obviously a busy schedule for you and spending some time with us this morning. I appreciate it very much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks a lot, man. I will speak to you later, and I hope everyone will come to the Magic Bag tonight.
All right. The legendary Michigan favorite son, lead guitar player, hit songwriter extraordinaire Dick Wagner tonight at the Magic Bag in Ferndale. Show starts at 8, doors open at 7. Thanks again, Dick. You have a great show tonight.
Thanks. I'll talk to you again.
All right. More off the cuff straight ahead.